Welcome into SportsZone All Access. Ian Sachs and Grant Sweeter on this Super Bowl Monday. Grant, maybe not the most exciting game the first three quarters. The final quarter had some offense, had some fireworks, and the Seahawks come away with the win.
Yeah, it was about what I expected. I thought, I don't know what I thought. I mean, 4 field goals, 2 3/4, 12-0. I mean, it was pretty boring to watch through the first 3 quarters. Commercials were okay. I thought there was a few good ones in there.
Goodwill Duncan was my favorite.
Okay, yeah. I liked I think it was Mick Ultra one where they were like training someone how to ski, and it was Kurt Russell, which kind of gave me like the Herb Brooks vibe, since that's who he played in Miracle.
And with the Olympics going on.
Yeah, right.
Olympics
it was fitting.
too.
It was fitting. Yeah, it was good. So there was a handful of good ones. But for the game itself, I really didn't even. I honestly was impressed how much I didn't pay attention for the first 3 quarters. I have a son now, so we're taking care of him too. But fourth quarter was better, and I thought it was well over when the Seahawks scored that touchdown in the fourth, made it 19-0, and then Drake May just goes, "Hey, here's 2 plays and touchdown," and puts them right back into the conversation. So at the end of the day, though, Seahawks just too much.
Yeah, that they were. I loved that the announcers, right before the Patriots scored their first touchdown there, said, well, the Patriots came back from 28-3 in the fourth quarter, and then they go and score the touchdown almost immediately, and it's like, well, here we go. And then, of course, the Seahawks defense too much, but it was the offensive side for the Seahawks that we had our eye on here in South Dakota, with Gray Zabel winning the Super Bowl with the Seahawks, the rookie from Pierre, first-round pick for the Birds, and 1-for-1 now with seasons in the NFL and Super Bowl championships.
Well, and, I seen something that this guy won 3 state championships in Pierre. Maybe even 4, probably 4, honestly, when you think about the time that he was there. 2 FCS national championships with the Bison, and now is a Super Bowl champion. So this guy knows nothing but winning, Ian. Right. And credit to him. They talked to him pregame for a reason. I mean, this guy, they think this has got a long future for Gray Zabel. He was part of an offensive line that they kind of retooled, brought in some new pieces, got it hit on some rookies, Zabel being one of them, and that was huge for them. The Patriots D line and their front core can really get after the quarterback, and I thought, they did. I thought Darnold was able to fight through some of that mess a little bit, but that old line also created some openings for him. So I think Zabel was a part of a good group that really kept a little pressure off, and I think that was the difference in the game. The Patriots O-line could not handle the Seahawks' vaunted rush, and Drake May had no chance the most of the game. I think that was the difference in why the Seahawks were able to move the ball a little bit early on.
I totally agree with that, and I think of the emblematic play of the game was the interception return for the touchdown that the Seahawks had, all created by the pressure that they applied on May. He had to get rid of the football, looking for somewhere, just kind of lobbed it up, and the Seahawks returned it 45 yards for the touchdown. But you always hear it's a battle of the trenches. It's one in the trenches, and Zabel a big part of the reason why the Seahawks so successful this year. So pretty exciting to see a South Dakotan in the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, and it's a pretty cool week for South Dakotans in the NFL because a couple days earlier you had Adam Vinatieri getting the call to the Hall of Fame. So pretty good time to be a fan of South Dakota high school and lower level football and seeing what both of those guys are doing.
Yeah, it's awesome, right? It's so cool for the peer community, and this is a team that had won 7 state championships in a row, set a state record for that. So I mean, to see them having some, they had tons of guys that go off to college, but they said this was the first one. Steve Steele told me his first one that Pierce ever had drafted. Now he wins the Super Bowl, and the thing about this Seahawks team, they're kind of young too. I mean, they have some veteran spots at some spots. DeMarcus Lawrence probably isn't going to play many years. Right. But they do have a lot of talent and young talent at that. Zabel being one of them. They plan on being a competitive team for quite some time. A team that somehow didn't turn the ball over at all in the playoffs. That's never been done before by a Super Bowl champion, which is kind of, I blew my mind hearing that. But
well, and one stat that I saw, first Super Bowl champion in over 2 decades to score more than 100 points in the postseason run and hold their opponents below 50 combined points. Last team to do that was the 2002 Bucks. We know how great that defense was, and the Seahawks right there with them. But transition now to Gray Zabel's college team. NDSU making some big headlines this weekend in that the Bison are leaving the FCS to go join the Mountain West Conference starting this season. NDSU has won 10 of the last 15 FCS national championships, and now they are the latest program to make the jump up to the FBS.
Yeah, this is a good. This is interesting. It really is that this is the time now that they reached out and said that this is when we're going to do this. And for the Mountain West, I can't blame them. This is a good move on their part. We've seen teams that have had far less success. No team has had more success in the FCS, especially in the last 2 decades, than NDSU. And we've seen other teams like James Madison, go up to that next level. And it's a smart idea if you're the Mountain West, right? It's a football-only invite. They don't have to take on other sports and stuff like that. For NDSU, it's smart because you don't have to really change anything for any other sport besides football. And if you're the Mountain West, you're now welcoming in the greatest program in FCS history. I mean, it's not arguable. Are they the strongest program at this current moment? I don't know if they are, but they're still a powerhouse every single season. Over the last 2 decades, they're the best team in the FCS subdivision. And so needless to say, yeah, this is there's nothing wrong with this. I think this is great for NDSU. And I certainly think that this is a strong move by the Mountain West.
My thing is that you look at NDSU, I feel like they could have done this at any point over the last 2 decades, given what they've done. The timing now, I think, says more about where we are in college sports. The Mountain West losing half of their football teams to the new Pac-12, so they're looking to fill out a full conference. They were at 9 teams and looking to see who else they can add. Why not add the best team in the FCS, a team that can certainly compete at that level? You think about
absolutely.
You think about just last year, NDSU in their season opener took Colorado all the way down to the final play, and that's a Pac-12 or formerly Pac-12, now Big 12 team. So the Bison we know can compete at the FBS level. Why not take a shot at them? I think they can easily compete. They might not be a top 25 team year 1 or year 2 at the FBS level, but to say that they'll go over 500, I think is certainly within reach even for year 1 with the Bison.
Well, and look at what James Madison did, right? They transitioned to FBS, and granted had a really good coach at their time, had Kurt Signetti. It was pretty good. But look what James Madison did. Within a few years of transitioning up to FBS, they got into the playoffs, so why could NDSU not do that with the success that they've had more at the FCS level? So, there was rumors Tim Polasek was going to leave. I don't know if these rumors were a thing at the time. It might have been why he stayed, because he knew that they were going to go up to FBS. I don't know. I think it's the right thing for NDSU, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see how they do at the next level, and they're paving a way. You have some teams in this area that could think about that. SDSU being one of them. The Montanas could both do that. I think USD and North Dakota aren't far behind. So NDSU's paving the way to, could this be the future and if it works for NDSU, other conferences in the FBS are going to come calling on the SDSUs and the Montanas and, those other schools to potentially add them as well.
Well, that's just it. That the next discussion now is, one, what the landscape is going to look like in the FCS without
Oh, it changed.
NDSU there,
Huge.
because
Huge
now
change.
it seems so much more wide open. Even though the Bison aren't the reigning champions, they were the 1 seed in last year's FCS playoffs. They won the championship the year before. So now it opens it up for the 2 Montana schools, the 2 South Dakota schools, UND, Illinois State, who made the run to the championship game this year. Open it up and say, hey, why can't we be the next NDSU and win however many championships over the next decade? But as you mentioned also, now the questions will begin to swirl of who's going to be the next program to jump up from the FCS. Will be interesting to follow all throughout the next couple of days, weeks, months, and years. But one more thing to jump into. We're right in the middle of college basketball. Incredible that we led off a show with 2 big football stories, even with State U this past weekend. And that's where we jump to now. USD getting a 1-point win in Brookings, knocking off the Jackrabbits 68-67. Grant, this was defined as a game of runs. USD jumps out to an 11-point lead midway through the first half. Jackrabbits come back, tie it. USD leads by 11 at the half. Jackrabbits score 17 straight in the second half to take a 6-point lead. Coyotes storm back. It's back and forth, and then they finally get the best of them to snap a 10-game losing streak in the series.
Yeah, I'd say USD was, the last few minutes, the game was pretty up in the air. The 2 teams were going back and forth pretty well. But in the other 35 minutes, I'd say USD controlled 27, 28 of those minutes. I mean, they were the better team for the majority of the game. And that man right there, Eric Peterson, should absolutely be in the Coach of the Year conversation because they have gone through a lot to get here. NDSU was expected to finish towards the top. Had they finished undefeated, I think it would have been a no-doubter. Dave Richmond gets Coach of the Year. But now, they lost, right? So who knows? If NDSU loses another game or 2 and you don't really have this definitive great team at the top, then you look across to who the Coach of the Year could be. I truthfully think that Eric Peterson, this is the best coaching job he's ever done. Here's a game plan. Here's our roster. We have one of the best players in the conference. Okay, we just lost 5 guys, including one of the best players in the conference. We have to completely change our game plan, and he's still finding ways to win, even on a tough environment like SDSU. When they had that big run, I thought, okay, game's over. SDSU, it's got the crowd behind them. The place was roaring. Ian was live at that point, and you could barely hear him talk because it was so loud in the arena.
Right.
I thought it was over at that point, and then USD somehow stopped the bleeding, leveled off, and was the better team down the stretch. So I'm intrigued to see how USD finishes this season because right now the Coyotes are playing good basketball.
Yeah, it's incredible to think of all that adversity that you mentioned, where they are in the standings. Let's listen to both coaches from after the game.
We just had enough at the end to obviously win it. And it comes down to getting a few stops and then having our guards rebound. Like Uzi had 8 rebounds, which is incredible for a point guard.
Disappointed, obviously, with the loss. Tough one for our fan base and for us. Credit to the USD. They came out and had a really good first half and then made some plays down the stretch.
2 teams were separated by a half game entering the game in the standings. Now, USD right in the thick of things, sitting in 4th. Jacks take a little bit of a step back, sitting in 7th now. But all I know is I'm going to be really looking forward to when they match up in Vermillion in a couple of weeks right at the end of the season.
Yeah, SDSU's got some things to figure out. The Jacks are struggling right now. They really are. And, they're just not scoring. I mean, they went on that big second half run, and that barely got them into the 60s. So, they're just not scoring. And their goal is right now with the struggles, can we muddy the waters enough that the other team doesn't score a bunch of points? And you saw St. Thomas, close game at halftime. They couldn't keep the water muddy, and St. Thomas ended up beating them by double digits. And so USD, the waters got muddied in the second half enough that they were able to level it off now. But if USD had some of their guns, I mean, some of their guys, that's the thing that USD is missing is, when the water gets muddy and you're trying to get through a little bit of a run by the opponent, here, Isaac Bruns, take the basketball, go score. You know what I mean? And they don't have that right now, though they do have a couple of guys that are playing good. But, SDSU's got some things to adjust, and USD, yikes. This impressive how well they're playing. They had all the reason to ship in the season when 4 guys down. We were doing okay in the conference. Now Isaac Bruns is down. They could have shipped it in, and they didn't. They somehow found a way to get better.
Yeah, that they did. Just a couple weeks left in the regular season. Well, when we come back, we shift gears over to some high school volleyball, a pretty big accomplishment for one local coach. We hear from her next. You're watching SportsZone All Access. Welcome back to SportsZone All Access. Ian Sachs and Grant Sweeter are here with you at the KELOLAND Plus desk. And Grant, we're not in volleyball season, but a local award or one local coach winning a national award or receiving national recognition. And we know Harrisburg volleyball has been good the last couple of years. That's an understatement. But now their coach, Renette Costain, receiving some national accolades.
Yeah, it's no surprise. You're going to hear some stats in here that are pretty shocking. But yeah, she's up for National Coach of the Year, and Kelly Volk spoke with her to just kind of tell us like what she does and how it's more than just the game itself.
Yeah, let's listen to Kelly's story.
Volleyball is a longtime part of Renette Costain's life. She's been coaching the sport for the Harrisburg School District for 30 years.
Funny because all through high school I thought I was a better basketball player till I got to about my sophomore year, and then I realized I played better in volleyball.
Under Costain's leadership, the Tigers won their 4th state title in a row in November.
We're undefeated in the state of South Dakota for the last 3 years.
Sophomore Jocelyn Samuels is a setter for the team.
Something she always pushes me on is just to keep finding ways to get better. So obviously I can keep practicing setting and just reps and reps, which are really important, but also things like improving my game and serving and defense and things like that. So she just brought a new side to kind of my all-around game.
But it's not all about success on the court. The head coach says she wants players to know they're loved.
Those bonds, we don't take that for granted, and so my biggest reward is years later if I'm still in contact with them, whether it's through social media or if they're inviting us as coaches to their wedding, then we won. We won at the game of life because we made a difference.
Well, you heard those stats. Undefeated against South Dakota teams the last 3 years. But for Coach Costain, it means more than just the wins, and having that impact on her players is what's important to her.
Well, yeah, it is. And every coach is going to say that. Every coach has different philosophy, whatever it may be. But for me, I talk about what she can do, because I don't know what the ins and outs of, We can hear the positive conversation that their players say and stuff, but what we know is how good they are, right? 4 straight state championships. Went on a long undefeated run for a couple of years, honestly. And when you can use years as how long you went undefeated, it's impressive. And then suffered their first loss when they went to a national volleyball tournament. They had 2 losses this year at a national volleyball tournament against nationally ranked teams. So, that's all I can say is what she has done from our perspective of watching that team play. They're the best team in Class AA year in and year out for the past 4 years. And so that's all we can say is that from that perspective, she's a heck of a coach because she's done the right thing to bring in a group of talented girls and make them play together as the best team in the state and usually blowing away teams. They've had more 3-0 sweeps than they haven't had.
Yeah. When you're talking about 3-0 sweeps versus not, as opposed to wins and losses, that means that you're heads and tails above the rest of the competition. Good luck to her to win Coach of the Year nationally. That would be a great accomplishment, and hopefully we'll get to talk to her when she does win the award. So I was trying to speak that into existence. Well, when we come back, it was a busy weekend on the high school hardwood as well. We'll touch on some of the marquee games from the last couple of days. You're watching SportsZone All Access. Welcome back into SportsZone All Access. Ian Sachs and Grant Sweeter here with you. Saturday had several showcases for high school basketball across the state. You had the DAC 12 NEC Clash for girls basketball up in Madison, the Heritage Classic at the Sanford Pentagon. We were able to get to some of them, a couple of ranked versus ranked matchups, and we'll start up in Madison where Hamlin and Lennox did battle once again. It was a great clash when they met in Hayti a couple weeks ago. A close Hamlin win, and this one, same result. Hamlin just edges Lennox in a tight one in Madison.
Yeah, but, a defensive battle that the Orioles just slipped and missed like they did last time. This one was close down to the wire. Last time Lennox got down double digits, it looked like it was over and had to surge back into it to even have a chance. And this time it was just, two really good teams going at it again. So we could see this matchup again down the road. Who knows? What I do know is if we do, we'll be treated to it.
Yeah, it's been fun to see them play the first couple of times this season, and wouldn't mind seeing them again in the state tournament just a little over a month away. Crazy to be saying that sentence. Well, another ranked battle in Hamlin, or I should say in Madison, Sioux Falls Christian and Clark Willow Lake, and the Chargers coming away with the win over Clark Willow Lake.
Yeah, I think the Chargers, you've been playing better basketball as of late. And, this was just a game where they came out and hit some shots early and were able to just kind of slowly build that lead from there. Just a great win for Sioux Falls Christian, who continues to be a team that we got to keep an eye on in that kind of 4-5 area in the rankings and standings that could make some noise come playoffs and state tournament time.
Reigning state champs for a reason, looking to get back to that stage once again. Well, down in Sioux Falls, Lyman suffers its first loss of the season, losing to a 4A team, number 2 Bishop Heelan. So you have a Class B team against a 4A team. Bishop Heelan looked every bit like a top-ranked team, winning this one big, but for Lyman, their run comes to an end, but still an impressive start to the season.
Yeah, it is. Just, honestly, too much firepower for Bishop Heelan. Honestly, they're just too big. Give Lyman some credit, though. They've still had a great season. They're still the team that a lot of teams are looking for in Class B.
Yeah, it will be fun to see just how they finish up the rest of the regular season and head into playoff time. Well, we're getting short on time here. When we come back, we'll take a quick look at what's on tap for tonight. You're watching SportsZone All Access. Welcome back to SportsZone All Access. Well, quickly before we get out of here, here's a look at what you can expect tonight on KELOLAND Sports. We'll hear from Augustana head coach Jerry Olszewski about CJ Ham's retirement, then some high school basketball highlights, Arlington and St. Mary's, and college baseball. It was nice out today. Augustana playing host to Bemidji State. Well, we got to get out of here and cover all of that. We'll catch you guys next time here on SportsZone All Access.